morning, soldier. It's Drill Sergeant Reid, and I'm back. Time for you to get out of bed. Get in line. Get those shoes shined. 10 hunt and suck in that gut, soldier. It's time to get down to EOG boot camp day number 8. Today we're going to do some more geometry review with some scale drawings and circles. So it's time for us to fly off into the wild blue yonder, because nothing can stop the U.S. Air Force. Here we go. All right, so go ahead and get your packet out, folks. And let's get down to it. So you ought to be using the page that looks like this today, soldier. And let's go talk a little stuff about some scale drawings here. You also need your calculator handy. So if you got your calculator, make sure you got it out. Okay, make sure you got that close by. Go ahead and get it cut on, and here we go. All right, in scale drawings, I want to start out talking to you about this. A lot of these scale drawing things are going to give you some fractions, and I would encourage you to change them to decimals. So like, for example, if they tell you that the scale is a 1/4 inch equals something, let's say that a 1/4 inch is going to change to 0.25, okay? Or a 1/2 inch, of course, is going to be a 0.5. Or if it's 3/4 of an inch, let's go ahead and change that to 0.75. So you just need to know those, so you can go ahead and change them to a decimal. A lot of times using a decimal in these will make things a lot easier when you got to set up your proportions. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and split this over here and split it into two. So over here I'm going to do the easy one. Okay, so some of them just may say something that doesn't even use a fraction or anything like that. It may be 1 centimeter equals 5 feet. Okay, so if that happens to be the case, and let's say they say, well, they measure from Thomasville to Raleigh, and it was maybe it's 3.5 centimeters. Okay, so you'd want to set up your little proportion. You want to go, of course, 1 centimeter over 5 feet equals 3.5 centimeters over x. Of course, if you just multiply those two together right there, you'd have your answer. Okay, and I know y'all can do that on the calculator, so I'm not going to worry about telling you that, but 5 times 3.5 would be whatever that answer is, and that would be whatever x equals, because if you divide it by 1, it's going to be that same number. All right, one that's a little bit harder than that would be like the ones we did when we did our battles in the Pacific, where it might be 3 centimeters equals 17 feet or something like that. Well, let's make it 17 miles. Let's do that. So 3 feet equals 17 miles. And then they measure between two things, and let's say it ends up being 5.9 centimeters. Okay, that's your measurement. So when you set it up, you'd want to always want to put the scale part first. 3 centimeters over 17 miles equals 5.9 centimeters over x. Okay, so you want to set it up like that. We will solve this one. So we'd say 3 times x would, of course, give you 3x when you cross product there. And then you got to do 17 times 5.9. So let's see what that is. 17 times 5.9. All right, and that's 100.3. So 3x equals 100.3. Then, of course, that means I got to divide by 3 on both sides. 3 divided by 3 cancels out. And if I divide that by 3, let's see what we get, soldier. All right, so we get that big old long decimal. Don't forget, we're going round to the nearest hundredths place. So we'd say that's 33.43. So x is 33.43 miles. All right, so as you can see, we're going to be setting up some proportions here, soldier. So if it's easy, if it's got a 1 over something, that's super easy, because when you're taking cross product there, if you divide it by 1, it's going to give you the same answer. And then down here, of course, you got to do 3 times x is 3x, 17 times 5.9, and solve your proportion there. Okay, so always start out with the scale part. You always want to put the scale part on the left. Write that down first, soldier. Always put the scale part down first. All right, let's go over here to the harder part. Okay, so maybe they're going to ask you to find the dimensions of a room. Okay, or get the area of a room. Okay, I'm just going to put area / dimensions. All right, so let's say in this one they're going to give you the fraction. Okay, let's say they say the 1/4 inch equals 5 feet. This is on a blueprint. Okay, so this would be a blueprint drawing type thing where you're going to have to change it into the actual measurements. So let's say the 1/4 inch equals 5 feet, and let's say that Sloan's room, when you measure it on the blueprint, is 2.5 inches by 3 3/4 inches. I know I'm running off the box a little bit, but that's all right. Okay, Let me hunker down on this one a little bit. Okay, so we're going to actually have to set up, when it does an area or dimensions problem, you're going to have to set up two proportions. You're going to have to set up one for the length and one for the width. Okay, remember the width is the shorter one and the length is the longer one. So you're going to have to set up two proportions. So here's what I do. Okay, I'm going to make me a little T-chart down here. And over here on this side, I'm going to do the length, and I'm going to do a proportion for that. And over here, I'm going to do the width, and I'm going to do a proportion for that. Okay? And like I told you, if it was me, the first thing I would do, I would change that 1/4 inch. I would go ahead and change that into a decimal, and we just talked about that a minute ago, that's 0.25. So I'm going to go 0.25 inches over 5 feet equals, all right, over here, what's the length? 3 3/4. So the decimal I would use for that would be 3.75 inches over L. Okay. For the width, going back to the scale, I'm going to put the scale down first. 0.25 inches over 5 feet equals 2.5. Of course, that's easy. 2.5 inches over W. Okay, so I'm using L for length, W for width. I just changed those. 2.5 for that. 3.75 for that. All right, let's do our cross products and see what we get. So that'd be 0.25 L equals, let's see what 5 times 3.75 is. 5 times 3.75 is 18.75. And then I'm going to divide on both sides by 0.25. Okay, remember I changed the 1/4 into 0.25. All right, of course those cancel out. So 18.75 divided by 0.25, that's going to be 75 feet. Woo! What a big room. All right, the length is 75 feet. No decimal. Okay, it just came out to being exactly 75. All right, as long as it's got a big room. Okay, 0.25 times W would be 0.25 W. And 5 times 2.5, let's see, 5 times 2.5. All right, 5 times 2.5 gave me 12.5. All right, and of course to solve that, after we've done our cross products, we just got to divide by 0.25 on both sides. So divide by 0.25 there and there. Of course those 0.25s cancel out. So let's see what the width is. 12.5 divided by 0.25 is 50. Wow. All right. So now we know the length of Sloan's room is 50 feet. I mean, the length is 75 feet, sorry. The width is 50 feet. Now, how do I get the area of her room? All right, so that would be the last thing. How do you get the area of her room? Well, of course, that's just a little basic length times width thing. So for this one, it's just 75 times 50. And so let's do that. 75 times 50. 75 times 50. So that means her room is 3,750 square feet. Okay, so we just did length times width right there. Length times width, that gives us the area. So on the scale drawing question, soldiers, you got to make sure you set up some proportions. On the easy ones, you might just have to set up one, but over here on these more complicated ones where, you know, they're going to ask you for some area or changing the dimensions over to feet or whatever, you're probably going to have to set up two. One for the length and one for the width. All right. So hopefully that covers that on scale drawings. Proportions are your friend, okay? Proportions are your friend. Okie dokie. Now, circles. Let's talk about some circle stuff. First thing I want to do is just draw a couple of circles out here, just to review a couple of items with us. All right, so what's that line that goes all the way across the circle called, soldier? That is called the diameter. All right, remember the one that goes all the way across to the middle is the diameter. What about that one that goes halfway across, just from the middle of the circle or from the center out? That is called the radius. So know the difference, okay? It takes two radiuses to make a diameter, or if you take half the diameter, you get the radius. The other big thing we talked about, of course, is this little joker right here, and that guy, of course, is called pi. That's pi, pi. And we're going to use the number 3.14 for pi, okay? Don't use the pi button. Just use and type in 3.14 for pi, and that'll get you what you need. Now I know it's longer than that. We talked about the fact that it's 3.14159265, whatever it is, and we're not going to use all that. We're just going to use 3.14. All right, so we've got a circumference formula that we need to know, and an area formula that we need to know with a circle. Okay, you got to have them memorized. hopefully you remember circumference is pi times diameter. Otherwise it'll kind of look like this, pi times d. And area is pi times radius squared. Otherwise it'll probably look like this, pi times r squared. Alright, in the short version. Alright, so we got pi times diameter for circumference. Of course, circumference is the one that goes around the circle, the outside of the circle. Another word kind of for perimeter of the circle. That would be where the crust is on the pizza, that kind of stuff. Alright. Area, of course, is where all the good stuff would be on the pizza. That would be where the cheese and the sauce and all your toppings and all that stuff are, okay, on the area. So hopefully you know the difference between those after we've talked about it a couple times. Alright, now let's do a couple of these down here real quick. What we got left? Okay, yeah, we can probably do one of these. Over here on this side, we'll go ahead and break this up into two. Alright, so let's just say we're doing a plain old circumference question, okay? So let's say you're riding a Ferris wheel, okay, and you're going around and around and around and around. Let's say you go around on the Ferris wheel 20 times. Yeehaw! Alright, so you're riding around 20 times. Alright, and here is your number. They tell you that that is 78 feet. Okay, so if the diameter of that circle is 78 feet and you rode that Ferris wheel around 20 times, how far would you go? Alright, so since you're going around, that's a circumference question, so that would be pi times diameter. When in this case, of course, is pi times 78. So I'm going to do 3.14 times 78. Going to put it in right here on my calculator. 3.14 times 78. And hopefully you can see that's 244.92. 244.92. Now I went around 20 times. So then, of course, I got to multiply that number by 20 to see how far I actually traveled when I went around 20 times. So I take that times 20. And that's 4,894.4. You can see it right there. 4,898.4, and that would be feet. Okay, so there's a simple circumference question. Alright, let's say you've got a couple different guys getting some different pizzas here. Alright, so let's say we got Mario going to eat this pizza, Luigi going to eat this pizza. Okay, now you can see Luigi's pizza is a little bit bigger. Let's say Mario's pizza has a radius of 8 inches. Luigi's pizza got a radius of 11 inches. Okay, and let's find the difference in the area. Okay, so let's find the area difference between these two pizzas. Alright, so let's see. Let's start out with Mario's pizza. Okay, so for Mario, if we're doing area, of course that means we got to do pi times radius squared, which in this case is going to be pi times 8 squared. Alright, so pi times 8 squared, let's do Mario right here. 3.14 times 8 squared. Well, don't forget my little squared buttons, that little thing right there. Okay, or you could just do 8 times 8 times 8 if you want to do that, but I'm doing 3.14 times 8 squared. Alright, so for Mario's area of his pizza is 200.96. Alright, so that's Mario's. Alright, let's come over here and do Luigi's. Alright, same thing for Luigi. We would want to do for the area, pi times radius squared. His radius is 11, so that would be pi times 11 squared. And let's do that on the calculator, see what that comes up to be. Okay, pi times 11 squared. That's 379.94. 379.94. What does difference mean?
Well, difference means subtract, so I gotta do 379.94 from Luigi's minus the 200.96 from Mario's, and I'll also do that on the calculator. I've got that number in there already, so I'm just going to take away 200.96, subtract them, and the difference between Mario and Luigi's pizza is 178.98. Again, we're going to the hundredths place. That would be inches squared if it gave you answers like that. Okay. Alright, so there's that one. And real fast, let's finish one up over here. Okay. Let's say they tell you the circumference of the pizza is
89 inches, and it wants to know the area. What is the area if the circumference is 89 inches? All right, so we got to do a little work backwards here, okay? So the first thing you want to do is take the 89 and divide it by pi. All right, so 89 divided by pi. 89 divided by 3.14, and that is 28.34, because I'm going to go to the nearest hundredths place, so 28.34. All right, and when you get that, that is the diameter of the pizza. All right, how do I go from the diameter to the radius? Well, remember, if you take that and cut it in half, that'd give you the radius, because the diameter is the one that's all the way across. So we're going to take that number and divide it by 2. So 28.34 divided by 2 puts me down to a radius of 14.17. All right, and now that I know the radius, okay, I can just do pi times radius squared, and that would be pi times 14.17 squared, and that'll tell me the area. Remember, area is pi times radius squared. All right, so let's finish this one up. 3.14 is pi times 14.17 squared, because that's my radius, and altogether the area of that would be 630.48. Okay, again, there's a 7 there, so I'm going to round that up to an 8. So remember, if that's 5 or higher in the thousandths place, you got to round it up. So that's 630.48 inches squared. All right, soldier, let's fly off into the wild blue yonder. What do you say? So hopefully this is giving you some good review on some circle stuff. Okay, remember, when you work backwards over here, divide by pi first. This is your first step. That gives you the diameter. Once you know the diameter, you divide it by 2, and that'll give you the radius. Up here on these questions, don't forget you got to set up some proportions for your scale stuff. If it gives you a fraction, I would turn those fractions into a decimal. Until next time, this is Drill Sergeant Reid saying, I hope you're successful and keep marching up the ranks, soldier. I'm proud of you. Keep working hard. Only a few days left before the big battle. You are dismissed.